Welcome to Shenkman Education. My name is Marty Shenkman. The topic of this video clip is, should you serve as an executor or personal representative for the estate of a friend, family member, loved one who's passed? First, let me answer this not from a legal perspective, but from a human perspective. If somebody's relying on you to step in and help their family, their loved ones, their children, their minor children, whoever it may be, carry out their wishes to assure that their wealth goes to the charities they love and have designated, it's hard to say no to that responsibility. And I would think, as a general matter, especially if you've made the commitment to do it, hopefully they've asked you ahead of time, but even if not, they put this trust in you and reliance on you. Who's going to take over and do these things if you don't? So I think from a personal, human, moral perspective, you really want to try to do it. That being said, you need to do it with your eyes wide open, and you need to think about what you're getting into before you do it. And you really should consult with a probate attorney before you make the affirmative decision to accept. And here's some of the considerations. First of all, no one can really discern what the family dynamics, the dynamics of the people involved will be until somebody dies. In so many situations, there's so much emotional baggage that's hidden, pent up, and it just pours out after the death of a patriarch, matriarch, somebody else. You need to be mindful that there could be some real challenges with what you're getting involved in. That's not a reason not to do it, but you need to understand and evaluate that. If the kids are fighting over tooth and nail over every little tangible property in the house, the old grandfather clock, mom's wedding band, et cetera, you could really be in store for a lot of trouble and aggravation, and maybe even legal liability. And legal liability is something you really need to think about. What are some of the other issues? There's other video clips that we've created talking about all the formalities and procedures of handling an estate. You need to, if it's a will, go to court, get the will admitted to court, get what's called letters testamentary appointing you as personal representative or executor so that you can act. You have a responsibility to cancel credit cards. You want to make sure that the home, the residences are secure, changing locks and alarm codes, cancel credit cards. What debts did the individual have? When you administer an estate, you're going to have to be responsible to identify all debts. You may publish a notice in a newspaper or online of the death and asking creditors to come forward if they have claims. If you distribute the assets out of an estate and later there are liabilities you should have paid, whether it's credit card debt, lawsuit claims, whatever, and you didn't pay it, you could be personally responsible. So you need to really understand what you're getting into. And so often people get, just sidetracked, focusing on, I don't want to pay a lawyer, or this is easy, or I want to do this fast. You got to make sure you understand what's involved. You don't want to be personally liable for debts. And for that reason alone, it's really worth at least consulting with a probate attorney to make sure you've taken whatever steps are reasonable to protect yourself from assuming personal responsibility on liabilities or debts. You have to deal with marshaling or gathering all the assets of the estate, and that can sometimes take some digging. Some people have assets scattered all over the place. I've seen people with 20, 30 different brokerage and bank and investment accounts. It can be a daunting task. If compensation for the time that you spend is a factor, you need to evaluate how complex. Some estates can be very large but very simple, right? There's a family business, a house, and one brokerage account because they consolidated all their assets in one institution. So you got 3 assets to deal with. You can have a much smaller estate, a modest estate with 15, 20 different accounts, and they could all be owned differently. In trust for, pay on debt to, joint, et cetera, and you're gonna have to sort all that out. So be aware of that. So I think the bottom line is, from a human perspective, if you can fulfill the decedent's wishes and assist in administering the estate, that's a noble deed to do. But you need to go in understanding what liability personally you could have, some of the technicalities, income tax returns, an estate tax return. Even if the estate's small, you probably want to file an estate tax return for portability. That's discussed on another video clip. But there's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of complications. It's not as easy as most people think when they get into it. And I've seen over the years a lot of people pretty unhappy for the complexity, aggravation. And hey, if the kids are not getting along, or the heirs, whoever, nieces, nephews, and they start fighting over everything, they all may blame you. They may even sue you. Understand all that before you go in. Be careful after you've accepted to make sure you do things by the book to protect yourself. And if you're really concerned about it, or there's real problems, you may need to resign. And I would ask a lawyer to help you do that, because you don't want to have yourself in a pickle if you didn't resign properly. Another reason you may want to resign? You may have been appointed 20 years ago, and 20 years ago, you were in great health and life was simple. Now you may have physical issues, health issues, family issues. You may have a spouse or child with health issues and not have the time or emotional capacity to take on being an executor and dealing with some other family's problems. So evaluate all of that. So the bottom line is, noble deed, but really evaluate whether you can do it and whether it's reasonable for you, and if you have too much liability exposure. Thank you for joining me, and please keep in mind all the information on the video clip is for educational purposes only. Don't take any action without appropriate professional advice. Thank you.